Daredevil Born Again Season 1 ends with a promise. Kingpin is the mayor of New York. The city is under martial law. Vigilantes are illegal for like the 5th time in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And Matt is going to fight the Kingpin, and he is going to do so with what he describes as an army. As of right now, that army is looking pretty rough. In the last shot of this season, we see that the army contains Matt, who is Daredevil, Cherry, an ex-cop, Angie Kim, also cop, 4 other cops, Karen Page, who can kill people if they're Wesley, and Josie, who couldn't keep a bar open in Hell's Kitchen, which for people that don't know is Tourist Central. You've also presumably got some other characters who are on Matt's side, like Christian McDuffie and BB Ulrich, although it's unclear how much either of them know, but Kirsten isn't an idiot, right? But besides that, I was wondering, who else will join Daredevil's army? Who is likely? Who is possible? Who is a stretch? And this is based solely on what we have already seen in Season 1 and what makes sense here considering what's going on in the MCU. I'll also reference one bit of official casting that Marvel revealed between when this video hit Nebula and now, but I'm not going off rumors or actors who've been spotted in the city or anything like that. And I'm going to cover it like a TV lawyer, giving the case for, the case against, and a verdict, which is an overall likelihood rating between 1 and 10. And in honor of Daredevil being the MCU's most sex-positive character, this video is sponsored by AdamandEve.com. Use the code NANDO for 50% off one item plus free shipping in the United States and Canada. Some exclusions apply. So let's start with a group I call the Locks, the Case 4. This is simple. Seems like the Punisher will be around for this. In the season finale's final minutes, we see Frank beaten and chained in Fisk's dungeon. Then in the post-credits scene, Frank does the bare minimum to trick New Jersey's most gullible cop into helping him escape. What will Frank do after that? Well, very simply, he's probably going to revenge all those cops who wear the Punisher symbol, and then maybe, just maybe, he can kiss Karen or something. I don't know. The case against. I guess, like, maybe that new Punisher solo show thing is where he shows up, and whatever happens at the end of that means a return in Daredevil doesn't make much sense, but I doubt that airs before Born Again Season 2. Verdict. So this is an easy one. 10 out of 10. Punisher's definitely going to show up in some capacity. The Case 4. So important up front, we are talking about Angela Del Toro here, not Ava Ayala, who I always knew as a different character. Don't watch my Daredevil recaps on the Nando cut. Anyway, we're talking about Angela Del Toro, the likely future White Tiger and niece of original White Tiger Hector Ayala, who died in Season 1 of Born Again. After his death, Angela took the White Tiger amulet, which grants her magic powers, and used them to track down Muse, I guess, and then lost a fight with him because, and I cannot stress this enough,
did I ever tell you I used to compete in Taekwondo?
But anyway, Muse took some of her blood, Daredevil saved her, and then that was it for Angela until the finale where she shows up in the City Without Fear montage. And that's the biggest pro in Angela's column. The show signaled that she will be back, so she probably will. The case against. Angela's pretty young, so I could see a world where Matt turns her away, but at the end of the day, we've seen that this kid just does what she wants. Verdict. I'm also going to give Angela a 9 out of 10. She only loses 1 point because if she didn't show up, I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world, and maybe they're setting her up to show up in something else in the future, like Spider-Man or Champions. But I have a feeling we'll see her in Daredevil. The Case 4. I am as surprised as you are. If you told me 2 years ago that my only other lock behind Punisher and White Tiger would be the Swordsman, a character who we have only witnessed doing vigilante stuff in a blurry video, I'd have said you're crazy, but Tony Dalton's performance as Jack Duquesne managed to somehow transcend the first season of Hawkeye, and now he's a big player in Daredevil, being one of 2 prisoners we the audience are expected to recognize. I have said many times that I do not quite know what this character's deal is, besides has money and does swords, but now he also hates Kingpin, and maybe that is enough to get him a ticket to the Fisk fight. Will he play a big role? Probably not, but he will probably show up. The case against. I mean, if we never saw this character again, would anybody be heartbroken? Is he the heart and soul of Daredevil Born Again? No. So listen, we have to make guts so that a proper Daredevil character can have a spot. This is where you start. Still, I think he will have something to do. The verdict. As another guy in the City Without Fear montage, I think Jack is a lock. 8 out of 10. The Case 4. Not all defenders are created equal. And while Jessica Jones did make up a quarter of the street-level team, she holds 2 big distinctions. 1. She spent the most time with Matt during that series. He was her public defender. They went investigating together. He even wore her scarf. But 2. Jessica is the only other one of the 4 besides Daredevil to have a front-to-back great season of television. And that is Season 1 of Jessica Jones. I would imagine most fans would rank it in the top 3 Marvel Netflix seasons alongside Daredevil 1 and 3. Sorry, Luke Cage Season 1 and Punisher Season 1. So I think there's a good chance most audiences have seen a season of Jessica Jones and liked it. That goes a long way. We also don't really know what Jessica is up to. We leave Jessica in Season 3 having given up pretty much everything she's known for and attempting to leave the city before deciding to stay. It also appears she is still kind of under the influence of the Purple Man, although I doubt that would play in here. But besides that, I got no idea. She could be doing anything. Unlike Matt, Jessica does not have a secret identity, so whatever she's doing, she's probably not able to keep a low profile. You assume if she's still in the city, Jessica would be dragged back into this one way or another. The case against. How big of a team are we working with here? We've already got a couple of powered people, a bunch of cops, and a surly bartender. Do we need another character who was not introduced or even mentioned in the last season? And do we want to force audiences to watch the Defenders to understand how they know each other? Verdict. I believe if we get one of these guys, it's Jess, and I think we're getting at least one. So the odds should be good. And the odds got even better since I originally recorded this because it was announced that Kristen Ritter is going to be joining the cast of Daredevil Born Again Season 2 as Jessica Jones. So that is a 10 out of 10. Jessica is back. Now let's talk about what I think is the most interesting group, the Probables. These are characters that would definitely be near the top of the list, but have not been confirmed by the editing. The case 4. Like many people on this list, Maya Lopez, aka Ekko, hates Wilson Fisk. For people that did not see Ekko or forgot her deal in Hawkeye, Maya's father worked for Wilson Fisk, and Fisk basically acted as her surrogate uncle. Maya picked up martial arts as a hobby, and when her father was killed by Ronin, turned further to Fisk and became one of his closest enforcers, even though we never saw or heard about her before Hawkeye. She even fought Daredevil once and did okay. Maya worked for Fisk during the Hawkeye show and eventually learned that Fisk ordered the hit on her father and she shot Fisk in the head. He got better. Ekko moved back home and took over Kingpin's crime empire, even though home was Oklahoma and the crime empire was headquartered in New York, where she originally was. I'm not trying to cinema sense this, it just doesn't make much sense. Anyway, eventually she got Fisk's attention and fought him using her new Ekko powers of merging with the spirits of her ancestors to purge Fisk's trauma and defeat him. He got better. Which means he went back to being bad again immediately. But that was the end of the show. Here's why I think we have a good shot with Ekko. First of all, she premiered in a Daredevil comic. But this isn't the comics. Yeah, but Daredevil also showed up in her show for really no reason. But that does mean he's aware of her. He knows there's a woman with a prosthetic leg who almost beat him in a fight. And by now, it seems like he's connected the dots and knows she's Fisk's former protege who hates him. But also, a lot of the rest of the characters on this list are two things. Either it's characters from the Netflix shows who might show up here in the MCU for the first time, and it is characters from the MCU who aren't traditionally all that associated with Daredevil, but know him through their show or movie. Ekko is not really either of those. She feels like a character who could have popped up in the Netflix shows, especially before she got her merge with the ancestor power, because usually her deal is she's basically Taskmaster. She can copy fighting styles, and it seems like that sort of holds true in the MCU as well, but she was a grounded, gritty, conflicted character in the same vein as Jessica Jones or the Punisher. And unlike all of the other MCU original characters, she is not just someone who bumped into Daredevil one day. She grew up in the same New York criminal underworld as Matt and has a vendetta against Daredevil's sworn enemy who just rose to power. I think her inclusion in this story makes perfect sense. The case against. As was hinted at during my description, the Ekko show was sort of a mess. I wouldn't be surprised if it's one of Disney Marvel's least watched things. So I don't think the casual Disney Plus fans are clamoring for Ekko's return. Also, she doesn't know any of these guys. She's probably on Matt's radar, but besides her potentially trying to take on Fisk by herself, I can't really see a great on-ramp for Maya. And I think we've already got someone else who's teeing up for the Lone Wolf mission further down this list who I like a lot more. Verdict. I am really not sure. Part of me wants to say she's likely, but I don't think she's necessary in the same way some of these other guys are. I'll give her a solid 5, soft 6. The case 4. Wait a second. Bullseye is a bad guy. He hates Daredevil. Why would he join his army? Well, very simply, Bullseye hates the Fisks more. All of Poindexter's recent tragedies have come with the help of the Fisks. In some cases, he was pushed in a bad direction, and in others, he was actively manipulated against his will. But either way, Bullseye has an axe and then a bunch of little knives to grind. And in episode 8 of season 1 of Born Again, Bullseye broke out of jail and attempted to assassinate Wilson Fisk. If Matt is truly assembling the anti-Fisk team, he might not be able to stop Bullseye, Bullseye from joining. And in the season 1 finale, we see Bullseye struggling. The show has created a Bullseye that is way more nuanced than any version of the character I'm familiar with in the comics. Do I think he's going to be a good guy? No. But do I think it feels like they're setting up something of a redemption arc in season 2? Yeah, I can kind of see it. The case against. This isn't as much a will he show as it is a will he join situation. I can see a world where Bullseye is out for revenge, but like the season 3 finale, acts as more of a chaotic third party. And would Matt even let Bullseye join, even if Bullseye wanted to? Matt is endeavoring to create a movement that proves the city is better than Fisk. Would the inclusion of a famous serial killer muddle the message? Maybe. Verdict. Ultimately, I do think Born Again Season 1 is teeing us up for the Poindexter redemption arc. I would not have been this convinced if Vanessa did not literally take the pills out of his hands and make him sign the release papers. Now, does that mean he definitely joins Matt? No. And if Matt has a Defenders Assemble moment, I don't think Bullseye's part of it. But I could see a world where the two recognize that they have a common enemy and align their actions this one time. So maybe Bullseye will be doing all this helping from behind the scenes. I'm going to give him a 6 out of 10. Next, I want to talk about the maybes. These are characters that could show up, but would be surprising. The Case 4. It's hard to keep Electra dead. She's not quite up there with Jean Grey and Ben Reilly in the most comic book resurrections club, but because of her connection to magic and the love of the fans, Electra has managed to rise from the dead more than once. And right now, in the Marvel Netflixiverse, Electra is dead. In Season 2 of Daredevil, she is killed by the Hand, and then she is revived by the Hand and Defenders as their Black Sky, only to be killed again when the building collapses on her and Matt. Obviously, Matt somehow survived this, so I don't see why Electra wouldn't, or at least it feels plausible that she could. Where's she been? I don't know, maybe she lost her memory or something for a while. That happens a lot. Either way, it would not be that much of a stretch for Electra to see Matt in trouble and rush to aid him in his war on Fisk. And while the back half of Daredevil Season 2 is messy, I blame that mostly on the Hand just not being that interesting. I really enjoyed Elodie Jung's Electra, and a lot of other fans did too. Bringing her back could be fun too, because in the Chip Zdarsky Daredevil run that a lot of Born Again Season 1 seems to be taking inspiration from, Electra even fills in for Matt as Daredevil for a bit. So maybe if Matt goes down, Electra can come out of retirement to keep the name alive for a bit. The case against. Regardless of how much I like her, this Electra was part of Daredevil's 2 weakest showings. I don't think her history is something Marvel is itching to revisit. Also, she is technically at least assumed dead for now, so bringing her back into the field might require some explanation that fans may not really want to deal with. And maybe people like where she ended. Not every character needs to be constantly revived. The ones that stay dead tend to matter, even if they didn't stay dead the first time. Verdict. As much as I would love it, I just don't see this as probable. I'm gonna give her a 3 out of 10. The Case 4. Okay, so let's talk about those other Defenders. While I don't think either season of his show was as consistent as they needed to be, I think people came away enjoying Mike Coulter's Luke Cage enough that I'm sure they'd be happy to see him here. Luke is an iconic New York superhero, and much like Jessica, I don't think it really matters where his story ended. Audiences will accept a version of Luke who has gone back to his comic roots, protecting Harlem and occasionally hassling Doom for cash. Plus, if the police have formed a paramilitary, extrajudicial task force, there's no way Luke Cage is going to just let that slide. More than anyone on this list, busting up crooked cops is Luke's specialty. And it doesn't hurt that after Fisk was ousted, Luke Cage took over as the mayor of New York. And in the MCU, I could see the mayor who suspends due process creating a political appetite for a literal social justice warrior. Plus, if Daredevil needs an army, it would help to get some leaders. Luke, unlike the other Defenders, can inspire the people. He's a public figure who stands for something. So Luke would be an asset to this team in a way that very few other heroes would. And it'd just be nice to see him. Sure, his show wasn't perfect, but I think Luke Cage is one of those characters that people are always in the mood for more of. The case against. But okay, when season 2 of Luke Cage ended, Luke was embracing his Donald Trump era. And that's not me saying that, Luke said that.
I'm the only person that can make Harlem great again, D-Dub.
He's the new owner of Harlem's Paradise, and he's sort of in charge of organized crime, at least the Harlem part. So is that the guy you want to call if you're Matt? Teaming up with a character who I imagine in universe many people would call Harlem's Kingpin is not great for the brand. Also, the same way Matt and Jessica paired off for a lot of Defenders, Luke, as you would expect, paired off with Danny. Luke and Matt don't have much of a relationship. They're on the same side of the new anti-vigilante law, but does he make the cut if space is limited? The verdict. I'm going to say Luke Cage gets a 6 out of 10. Slightly less likely than Jessica, but more likely than a certain other Defender who... fine. The Case 4. We did the other two. Let's talk about Danny Rand, the immortal Iron Fist, protector of Kunlun, sworn enemy of the Hand. He headlined 2 seasons of Marvel Netflix television that frequently are held up alongside Secret Invasion and Inhumans as some of the MCU's worst, but they did happen, and then he was part of the Defenders. The case against. Nobody liked anything this character was in. Neither season of Iron Fist was particularly good. Defenders wasn't particularly good. That one episode of Luke Cage with Iron Fist was fine. Also, can Finn Jones actually do Kung Fu yet? He very famously wasn't anywhere near ready in season 1. Whether or not that's his fault or the production's fault is irrelevant. He has had a decade to figure it out now. If he's got the skills, I think it could be cool. And obviously he could wear a mask and you could sub in a stunt guy, but what's the fun in that? This should be the Finn Jones redemption tour, but is he up to it? Also, Iron Fist is very much a different kind of character than these other guys. His powers don't come from an experiment or a chemical spill. He is, or was, empowered by his chi based on techniques he learned in the mystical city of Kunlun. He's a character who feels like he'd be way more comfortable in the world of Doctor Strange than Daredevil. And sure, the back half of Daredevil Season 2 dealt with magical ninjas, but again, that was the one part of Daredevil that we all agreed didn't really work. So would it be weird if everyone on Matt's team is a regular human or mutate except Danny? Would he stick out? Besides, I guess, Angie, although we haven't seen the White Tiger amulet in action yet. But does Iron Fist sort of kill the vibe? Also, Danny Rand is not even the Iron Fist anymore. At the end of season 2, Colleen Wing takes up the mantle and Danny goes globetrotting with chi guns, which are objectively cool. But if they want to be consistent about the mantle passing, get Colleen, because this is her job now. The verdict. I don't think there's a world where we get 3 out of 4 defenders. However, I have to acknowledge the reality that Danny is the least popular one by a mile, so he loses a point. 5 out of 10, a toss-up. The Case 4. These two are a packaged deal. Misty Knight and Colleen Wing both were introduced as supporting characters in other Defender series and never really got the chance to transcend either, since by the time they were really moving, the Marvel Netflix experiment had run its course. But Misty and Colleen are characters that many fans of the shows and comics wanted to see more of, potentially in some sort of new series about their team-up, the Daughters of the Dragon. In the comics, they create a private investigation office called Nightwing Restorations, no relation, and work together in the background of their friends' books as well as eventually their own Daughters of the Dragon series. So here's the question. Do we get Defenders side characters, albeit important ones, in the next season of Born Again? After all, booking the original Defenders is already a tall order. Can they bring back some of their supporting cast as well? It would certainly be nice to see them again. Simone Missick and Jessica Henwick appear to be game. Neither has become too big of a star for a cameo like this, and if everyone else is involved, I'd expect they'd want to show up. These Defenders don't exist in a vacuum. This is especially true of Colleen Wing because, like I just said, she is the new Iron Fist, at least as far as Season 2 is concerned. Might it be an issue that Iron Fist Season 2 has to be the least watched individual Defender season? It doesn't need to be. Danny and Colleen could both show up. His guns glow, her sword glows. Matt says, I thought he was the Iron Fist, and Danny says, a lot's changed in the past few years, and then we move on. The case against. Okay, but like I said, nobody watched that last season, and I have a feeling the same is true for Luke Cage Season 2. So many members of the audience did not see Misty's robot arm or the Daughters of the Dragon team-up episode, so are we really missing much if they're not here? Especially because as Iron Fist, Colleen's duty is to protect Kunlun and destroy the Hand, and I doubt Kunlun is in jeopardy here. In fact, I think it's already been destroyed in the Marvel Netflix continuity, and the Hand are pretty tough to kill, but if they still exist, I doubt they're working for Fisk, so does this even fall under the Iron Fist domain anymore? Not really. But also, they don't tend to stick with that on these shows, and maybe the Hand is really dead. Verdict. We've got to be working with shorter odds than their Defenders counterparts, so I'm going to give Misty Knight and Colleen Wing a 4 out of 10. And I don't see a world where we get one and not the other. The Case 4. I almost lumped her in with the last group since they were sort of a team in Defenders, but I actually think there's a pretty strong case for Claire Temple on her own. For people who've forgotten, Rosario Dawson first appeared in Season 1 of Daredevil as Claire Temple, aka one of the night nurses, although she was never called that. At least I don't think so. She was an ally to Matt as Daredevil and managed to appear in every individual Defenders Season 1 except I think Punisher. She was a nurse at the hospital Jessica took Luke to, then she dated Luke, and then she went on a trip with Danny and Colleen and got tiger claws. So she has a personal relationship with all of the Defenders. Claire is also a nurse, which is the kind of person you definitely want on your side for what Matt's about about to do. Sure, he can stitch himself up in a pinch, but if things get complicated, you're gonna want an actual doctor. And that's the purpose Claire serves in the comics. She is one of the physicians that the superheroes can see if they, say, get shot and don't want to explain it to the cops, or just get sick and don't have healthcare. Rosario Dawson seems game for a return. She's obviously on Disney's radar, as she is currently filming season 2 of Ashoka. And as far as I can remember, Claire Temple is not dead or anything in the continuity. The case against. She did move, though. In fact, she walks out on Luke after he started getting violent in season 2, and we never saw her again. I don't think this character can't come back. I think she did have a pretty definitive ending. Also, sure, Rosario is a Disney player, but is she too busy? Both Born Again season 2 and Ashoka season 2 are filming right now. Does she have the time? I do think because she's primarily a nurse and a warrior second, she wouldn't really need to learn fight choreography or anything, and she doesn't need to be in a big team-up battle. I could see a world where Claire gets one scene with Matt and that's it. The verdict. I'm gonna say this is a coin flip, 5 out of 10. It's a matter of whether Born Again wants to go to the trouble of getting Rosario involved, but I think it could be worth it. The Case 4. Speaking of has joined the MCU, Kate Bishop is kicking around here somewhere. She seems to live in or around New York, since Jersey City's finest is able to make a house call, and has 2 very unique ties to what's currently going on. 1, her almost stepdad is currently in Fisk's dinner dungeon. Does Kate get along with Jack? Do they even talk after Kate's mom went to prison? I don't know, but she's definitely the MCU character most connected to Jack. And 2, Fisk ascended to become the big bad of Hawkeye Season 1, and the finale was even a showdown between Kate Bishop and Wilson Fisk that Kate won. Not as much as Ekko won the next face-off of the night, but still pretty good for Kate. So it would make sense for her to be suspicious of Kingpin when Jack goes missing and join the big fight once he's rescued. After all, you imagine Kate would be one of Fisk's highest profile targets since she exploded him that one time. And it doesn't hurt that Kate Bishop is one of those characters that fans have been pretty vocal about wanting to see more of since her debut 4 years ago. And yes, she was in the Marvels very briefly, had a pretty fun episode of What If, but if this was phase 2, we'd have seen Kate popping up in at least one Avengers movie by now. So this would be a good place to reintroduce Hawkeye to fans before Doomsday. And it double doesn't hurt that Kate Bishop is played by Haley Steinfeld, who is on fire right now, coming off of hits like Arcane and Sinners, and looking down the barrel of a third Spider-Verse movie being released somewhere in the next 50 years. She'd bring a bunch of new fans to Daredevil, and let's not forget, Hawkeye was good. People look back very fondly on that series. So Haley does not have the same problem as certain Defenders who people like in spite of the fact that their show was not great. The case against. 2 things here. 1, can they get her? Like I just described, Haley is a big star coming off a starring role in the biggest non-Minecraft movie of the year. Is this kind of thing worth the time and the money, especially when Daredevil fans probably didn't all watch Hawkeye and won't all miss Kate? And 2, is Kate really a street-level hero? Sure, she fought Fisk last time, but she's maybe moved past things like this? After all, the original MCU Hawkeye was never a street-level hero. He went from S.H.I.E.L.D. agent to Avenger. Does it make more sense if Kate follows the same path and immediately graduates to Young Avenger or Champion or whatever? Verdict. So does Kate swoop in to save her stepdad and get roped into Daredevil's fight? I think she could. The Swordsman connection just makes too much sense, and if her arrows are toned down a bit, she'd fit right in with the street-level colleagues. But it still feels like a stretch, so I'm going to say 4 out of 10. The Case 4. Okay, so under normal circumstances, no, I don't think a random member of the Hulk family would travel to the East Coast to get involved in Matt's war on Fisk. But we are not living under normal circumstances. And in episode 8 of the first season of She-Hulk, Jennifer Walters argued against Matt Murdock and fought alongside Daredevil, a character that somewhat confusingly she had never heard of, but whatever. Also, let's not bother trying to fit this in the timeline because I'm pretty sure it doesn't work. But it happened. And they had sex. Very good. But the two appear to still be friends after their fling, so if Daredevil was in trouble, and I have to assume what Fisk is up to would be national news, how long before Jen gets involved? As She-Hulk, Jen would easily be the strongest member of Daredevil's army, stronger than Jessica Jones and Luke Cage and even the mighty Swordsman. And in a fight where Fisk has tanks rolling down Fifth Avenue, maybe Matt needs someone like Jen to hold them off. Jen could also offer some legal advice, but Matt seems to have that covered. The case against. So there's something to the idea that Jennifer breaking the law isn't great for her in a way that doesn't really affect the rest of these guys. Jen has a public identity, and I imagine if she gets arrested by Fisk or there's a warrant out on her, Jen probably loses her ability to practice law. I don't know exactly how that works, but someone like Luke Cage or Colleen Wing, who also doesn't have a secret identity, doesn't need it for very much. They don't have day jobs. And Luke is sort of a crime boss anyway now. So I think by just getting involved, Jen is putting herself in unique jeopardy. She's also not from the city. She doesn't have a connection to any of these guys besides Matt. So I definitely wouldn't say she's going to be missed if she is not part of this team up. But she could conceivably make an appearance. The verdict. I'm giving Jen a 4 out of 10. I would love to see her, but I think it's unlikely. The Case 4. Much like Jen, under normal circumstances, this wouldn't make much sense either. But this time, Daredevil went out of its way to introduce the idea of Miss Marvel, the hero of Jersey City, which, unlike LA, is right across the river from Red Hook. Oh hey, and besides the Yusuf Khan connection, at the end of The Marvels, we learn that Miss Marvel hangs out with Hawkeye, who I think is very likely to show up here. So would Hawkeye call her friend who can create bulletproof force fields and is only a path right away? I don't see why not. One question that I cannot quite pin down is, did Matt ever go to the Khan's house for dinner? Probably not, right? Otherwise we would have seen it on screen, but why mention it at all if we're not gonna see it? And I think if it was gonna happen, it would have to be before Matt's New York City's most wanted vigilante, right? But then maybe that's the way this goes down. Matt is looking to form a team of vigilantes. He remembers the one his banker seemed obsessed with. He goes to visit the banker, hoping for an introduction. It turns out the banker's daughter is that very vigilante, something he can probably sense if he's near her, and then Miss Marvel joins the team. I buy it. The case against. If Matt did not know Yusuf Khan personally, I would not expect Kamala to just show up here. While she is technically a street-level vigilante, she doesn't exactly feel like she plays in that sphere anymore. Last time we saw her, Kamala was helping Captain Marvel and Spectrum beat up a Kree accuser before helping to close a rift in reality. Has Kamala graduated past beating up cops? Also, because of the Marvels, Kamala becomes one of those characters where you start wondering, hey, if she thinks this is a big deal, why didn't she call her new friend Carol, who could just throw Fisk into the sun or whatever? It's tough, and clearly there are ways to write around that. Carol can be busy, Carol can be out of comms range, although she appears to live in her very good friend Maria's old house now, so it isn't impossible to explain, but it's not helpful that we even need to bother with it. And last thing, Kamala is a kid. Like, I'm going to place her currently in her late teens, let's say 17. It's easy to forget since the Marvels positioned her and Kate in the same class, but Kate was in college when we met her in Hawkeye and is likely graduated by now. Would Matt even let a vigilante risk her life if he knew she was underage, or would he feel too guilty? And the same thing can be said about Angela, but I think she's too connected to not be involved. Kamala would need to go out of her way to join this fight. I can see a world where Matt plans to recruit her, but when he finds out she's a teenager, he pushes her away. And maybe she listens for some reason, even though she never does. I don't know. The verdict. I'm gonna give her a 5 out of 10. It's a toss-up. Do I think she fits naturally? Not really. But why feature her dad so prominently if not to prime the audience for her arrival? I don't know. Case 4. Remember this guy? Yeah, before Daredevil got that MCU money and bought his super suits from the drip broker, he patronized a local small businessman named Melvin Potter. Melvin was a soft-spoken engineer slash craftsman slash designer who was able to build not only stylish devil-themed athletical gear, he also made stab-proof suits for Fisk and, based on little Easter eggs, I guess the Stiltman, although we never saw those babies in action. There's still time though, Marvel. You thought we forgot, but we didn't. And most impressively, Potter designed and built from scratch, completely unprompted, Matt's billy clubs that he is able to use as a baton, nunchucks, and a grappling hook. Potter is incredibly talented, and he likes Daredevil. He used to work for the bad guys, and will if threatened, but he works on all Daredevil stuff because he's a big fan of Hell's Kitchen's guardian angel. And specifically, Potter likes that the Daredevil protects Potter's girlfriend, Betsy, who he talks about a lot. Also, this character is neurodivergent, although besides that, I don't really know what they're specifically going for with him. Now, in season 3 of Daredevil, Potter was forced by Fisk to make the Daredevil costume worn by Bullseye as part of Fisk's plan to turn the public against Daredevil. Potter even fought Daredevil with some circular saw blades, we'll come back to that later, before surrendering and getting arrested. That is the last time we saw him, but presumably he's still out there, probably still in prison, but you never know. And you would be shocked to know, based on his very dorky name and the fact that he wears a t-shirt with some random logo on it, Melvin is a character from the comics who is also a vigilante. He usually goes by the name Gladiator, although he's not associated with that other gladiator from space, and Potter usually has a surprisingly simple super outfit equipped with a saw blade on each forearm. So, could Melvin join Team Daredevil? Absolutely. He definitely would, and he's another character that Fisk knows about, so he'd be a target, especially because besides being an above-average fighter, he's the weapons guy. So if, say, Luke Cage wanted some cool brass knuckles, or Electra wanted that Daredevil costume, they would go to Melvin, so he should be one of the first people Fisk locks up. And hey, if Melvin wanted to maintain his anonymity, this would be a great time for him to make that comic-accurate costume. If there was any character, specifically who it would make sense for Matt as Daredevil to inspire to take action, it's Melvin. The case against. The why not here is just that he's probably not on most people's radar. I think your average fan who watched Daredevil once when it first released might recognize him, but would probably need some help. Now, is that a reason not to use him? Absolutely not. But if it's Melvin or, say, Danny, I think they go with the more exciting pick, even if Melvin is way more meaningful for Matt's journey specifically. Also, he's probably on the cheaper side, and the hardcore fans would love it. The verdict. I really think they should. Honestly, he deserves like an episode. So I'm going to give him a 6. I don't think there are many good reasons for Marvel not to bring Melvin Potter back and finally turn him into the Gladiator. The Case 4. For people that did not watch the incredible Trish crash out of seasons 2 and 3 of Jessica Jones, Trish feels weak, so she becomes obsessed with getting superpowers and eventually does. She becomes a cat person. Season 3 is her full villain turn, and the series ends with Trish in custody, making her one of like 4 characters canonically on the raft. But if Jessica gets involved, maybe Trish manages to escape and join her surrogate sister in the fight. The case against. This would be an insane thing to just throw at audiences. Oh hey, look, it's this character you all forgot about. Well, now she's got cat powers. Why would they even bother? The verdict. I don't know, 2? She theoretically could show up, but goddamn, if we've hit Trish, that means the barrel of Super Friends is empty. And now let's talk about some stretches. The Case 4. If this were the comics, I still don't think he would be a guarantee, but Moon Knight would make a lot more sense here. Because in the comics, Mark spends much of his time patrolling New York City and protecting the Travelers of the Night. And the New York Night Travelers are exactly who needs protecting during what's about to go down in Season 2 of Born Again. The Case against. But this is not the comics. Moon Knight is barely a street-level hero. He seems to mostly fight Egyptian cultists and kaiju. We haven't seen him stop a mugging or something like that. Also, he's not from New York. He seems headquartered, at least as Steven, in London. Mark's sort of all over the place. He grew up in Chicago, hangs out all over Egypt, which is where he had his initial run-in with Khonshu, and we've only seen Jake Lockley in London. Could Lockley actually be a cabbie in New York City? Sure, but that comes as a surprise to us. And Lockley has been characterized as the most unhinged of the alters, so he's probably not the one you'd want teaming up with Daredevil. Also, Oscar Isaac is a busy man. He's got that Frankenstein movie coming up, he's in season 2 of Beef, and he's gonna be in that third Spider-Verse movie that they're probably working on. So I don't think it's worth it to bring him in for a shoot that doesn't make much sense with what we know about his character from the first season of Moon Knight. Verdict. Yeah, I gotta give this one a 1 out of 10. I'd say it's highly unlikely. Would be fun though. The Case 4. Here's the big one. Does Spider-Man make an appearance in Daredevil Born Again Season 2? Well, first off, this is right up his alley. New York, street level, anti-vigilante task force, scream Spider-Man. Also, Kingpin is traditionally equal parts a Daredevil and Spider-Man villain. In fact, I think there's a strong case to be made that while Kingpin is Daredevil's archenemy, a point made over and over on this show, Kingpin is way more connected to Spider-Man all over media. Comics, games, shows, the Spider-Verse movie. He debuted in a Spider-Man comic after all. And Sony apparently owns the movie rights to Kingpin. More on that later. But take Spider-Man's Kingpin relationship away. This Daredevil also knows Spider-Man. He represented Peter Parker in court. And yes, Peter's identity stuff makes this all screwy. Like, does Matt remember that he represented Spider-Man in a case but can't remember who he was? Or does Matt remember representing Peter Parker in a case but he can't remember why? Or maybe he just forgot all of it. But either way, Marvel is going out of its way to make that connection. And even though it's not in the same universe, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man also met Daredevil and the two fought. Daredevil is even voiced by Charlie Cox. So even if it doesn't line up perfectly with the current MCU, this is something Marvel wants us to think about. And man, would this be easy. He always wears a mask, so you don't even need to get Tom Holland for anything besides a voiceover. Is it expensive? Maybe, but also it would guaranteed be the most watched episode of one of these shows. And that's what this is all about, right? Boosting watch time metrics to increase short-term shareholder value, storytelling. But very simply, if Spider-Man exists in this universe, which he does, and he is not going through one of his semi-regular retirements, which he does not seem to be, then he would join this fight. It's just who he is. The case against the rights for this stuff is a mess. I'm not going to pretend to have any idea what's going on behind the scenes, but I can guarantee this appearance would be a contract nightmare, especially since those actors tend to sign on for appearances in X number of projects. So would Disney want to burn one of those here or negotiate a new one for a small cameo? And sure, you could just recast him, have your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man do the voice, never show his face. Hell, maybe he doesn't even need to speak, although it might feel a little strange if he doesn't say anything since he's usually a chatterbox. But would fans get mad if Tom Holland wasn't involved? Would that cheapen this whole thing? And also, Born Again Season 2 is set to release in early 2026. The same 2026 where we're supposed to get a new Spider-Man movie, and we know next to nothing about that movie right now. But perhaps the movie doesn't really fit with Daredevil, like maybe Spider-Man is retired at the start. So this appearance could complicate whatever story they're trying to tell. Verdict: I think they need to do something. Maybe it's not a full-on appearance where Tom Holland speaks and does a big fight scene. Maybe it's just a shot of Spider-Man swinging around during a montage. Or maybe someone mentions that Spider-Man has a certain area under his protection, like Queens. It could be fun if they tease that other heroes like Spider-Man are getting involved in the big fight, and then later on, Fisk tosses Daredevil out a window or something, and Spider-Man catches him at the last second and tosses him back at Fisk before joining the big fight on the street. Then Spider-Man ducks out once everything is done, so we don't need to hear him speak. I don't know. I'm going to give it an incredibly hopeful 3 out of 10. Not because I think Spider-Man will show up, because I think he should. So those are all the characters that might show up in Daredevil's army. Now check back in a year when we find out it's only Swordsman and Ekko. As always, thank you to everybody who continues to support the channel on Patreon. Thank you to everybody who listens to my podcast, Mostly Nitpicking, and everybody that follows me on social media. I'm Nando V Movies everywhere. That's all I got. Stay safe. I'll see you next time.